Now
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
Vince Coglianese.
Well, good afternoon to you. 406 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, top of the hour, Chris Bedford joins us from The Blaze. We'll get his reaction to the debate last night and where we go from here. A lot of news today, and it's September 11th. We will look back on the events now 23 years ago today as our country was under attack. You can join us 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Joining us now is the senator from Kansas, one of them, Roger Marshall, is on the phone. Senator, good to have you back with us, sir. Senator Marshall. Let's see. Do we have him?
Vince, I'm here.
Okay, good. I hear you. Great, Senator.
Okay, good.
So thankful that you're with us. So let me start with the debate. Did you watch the debate yesterday evening, and what'd you make of it?
I sure did. I think we don't know anything more about Kamala Harris's policies than we did a week ago.
True.
The biggest concerns folks got back home are the open border, the safety, security of their family, and, of course, the cost of gas and groceries. I never heard what Kamala's plan is to really address the border. Is she committed to addressing the border? How's she going to stop the flow of fentanyl in this country? How's she going to make our families back home safe? And when it comes to the cost of gas and groceries, all I heard from her was creating more government programs, more subsidies. And I'm telling you, well, those types of programs are going to lead to raising your taxes, more borrowing by the government, more spending by the government, and that's going to fuel inflation. So I didn't hear anything from a policy standpoint on how she's going to make America great again.
One of the big features of the night was the out-of-control bias and inappropriate behavior of the moderators themselves. What did you think of ABC News and the way they conducted that debate?
Yeah, it was 3-on-1. I mean, it is like playing a football game when the referees are homers, right?
Yeah.
And it's just next to impossible. So it was okay to fact-check President Trump, and I would disagree with a lot of the fact-checking that they were doing. I thought that Trump had it right. But was there any fact-checking of Kamala Harris when she was saying gross lies and when she refused to answer the question? That's the big deal. They let her walk away from really answering 3 or 4, I thought, very critical questions. Yeah. But, Trump was going to get no grace.
Well, I walked away thinking this is just another sign that the establishment is completely against this guy at every level. And ABC News is run by Kamala Harris, his close friend. They've been hanging out for decades, and this is a rigged game. I walked away from that thinking this is rigged. I mean, last night it was mind-boggling to hear. Kamala Harris bragged about how Goldman Sachs supports her and how Dick Cheney has endorsed her. What world are we living in, Senator Roger Marshall?
Yeah, I think this is what I would call the systemic censorship that we're seeing, the control of the entertainment complex by the Democrat Party as well. And again, to folks back home, most folks back home don't even know where Goldman Sachs is, and it's a great bank, and you and I know what it is. But it has nothing to do with the cost of gas and groceries, the cost of housing, of child care, of insurance is going sky high as well. I'm telling you, this economy is pretty soft right now. There's a lot of growth in government jobs, but there's a lot of good people out there looking for a good job as well. And again, the safety and security issue. Families don't feel safe in America anymore. 300,000 young adults have died from fentanyl poisoning. Human trafficking is exploding, even in a state like Kansas. We're seeing this. And then crime, just violent crime follows those drug sales as well. So families don't feel safe anymore, and you cannot raise a family. Credit cards are maxed right now. That's what I'm hearing from folks. My credit card is maxed. Interest rates are 24% on the credit card. What can you do about this? Well,
we've never had
the change in the White House.
We've never had higher credit card debt in the United States. Well over $1 trillion. Credit card defaults are on the rise. People are struggling, and they're trying to pay their bills on credit. It's a catastrophe. And it's only going to get worse under this situation. As you mentioned earlier, Senator Marshall, it's the government spending and the Federal Reserve's underwriting of it, all that printing of cash, which has made things so hard in the country. The cost of living has gone up meaningfully. Right now, there's a spending debate going on in Washington, and Speaker Mike Johnson seems to be in some sort of difficult position today because he wanted to vote on a continuing resolution that would kick the spending fight until March of next year. He pulled that today, and they're not advancing that bill because he just doesn't have enough support, apparently, to do it. Can you give us a sense of what's happening in Washington with this fight?
Right. So, once again, we're at the end of the plank here, and we're going to be forced to do some type of a short-term conglomerate spending bill. But I would contend that leadership in the White House, leadership in the Senate, and the House oftentimes want this. Now, I think Mike is golden. He's one of my best friends. I have absolute respect. He's one of those conservative people you'll ever meet. But he has such a thin majority, he can't really ram anything through. So the problem is we don't go through a normal budget process and we end up in this predicament.
Yes.
Congress has not done a budget in decades. I've spent the last year trying to figure out how can I put teeth to the laws that require Congress to write a budget. In the next month, we'll be releasing that bill and trying to find co-sponsors. But to some extent, leadership has always wanted this because then they get to build their bridges to nowhere.
I know you're a co-sponsor in the Senate of something called the SAVE Act, which I think is so important, which is requiring that people prove that they are U.S. citizens when they register to vote. A very simple ask, but designed to ensure our elections have integrity. And I know that Speaker Johnson wanted to attach the SAVE Act to this spending package. But I've heard some very smart reactions to that, including from Congressman Thomas Massie, who thinks this is a scam, meaning – this is like everybody in Washington knows that the SAVE Act is not going to actually end up at the end attached to that continuing resolution. It's just going to go away, and it's just designed to get conservatives like myself to back off and not scrutinize the spending plans so much. And as Massey points out, and people like Matt Rosendale, who we talk to here on the program frequently, and you just pointed out, Senator, this is because Congress hasn't been doing its job. It's supposed to pass 12 appropriations bills each year, and it never does. So I think there are quite a few people who are kind of tired of the scams. Don't you agree?
I think we're all tired of the process. We're tired of the $35 trillion debt. We're tired that we're going to take in $5 trillion and spend $7 trillion. We're going to spend $1 trillion on interest. This is the number one long-term threat that this nation faces. Whether you think federal government should be spending more money on the military, on schools, on roads and bridges, there is simply no money left, and we're feeling the pressure of that. The SAVE Act can stand on its own 2 feet, but the problem is there's no other way to get it across the finish line. This is the only way that Mike Johnson thought that it would have a shot. So why not roll the dice and give it a chance? Look, is there anything more important, more vital to the survival of our democracy than election integrity? And I think he's clearly showing America that Democrats don't give a damn about election integrity, that they are the threat to democracy. So I think he's trying to get a win-win situation here. It's very complex, trying to throw in a spending bill with this as well. I think he's trying to expose the Democrats for who they are, and they do not care about election integrity. Bottom line here is the Democrats have ushered in 12 million people across the borders illegally in the hopes of them voting in this election. And this election could easily be swayed by just hundreds, maybe thousands of votes in these key states. So I think he's trying to draw some light to that issue too.
That's good to do. And you and I both know that the definite way to get the SAVE Act passed is Republicans have to win clear control of the Senate. That's the big thing. Because it made its way through the House, and now it's just sitting in the Senate dying, doing nothing. And so in order for that to happen, you need Republicans to actually have control of these houses.
Yeah, elections have consequences. So many times what we want to do can't happen. That, look, the Republican conference would have loved to bring all 12 of these funding bills to the floor one at a time, look under a microscope, and you see somebody that has an amendment, let's say Nancy Pelosi, an amendment that it's going to bring millions of dollars a bridge to nowhere in California.
Right.
I could then rise to the Senate floor and say, I'd like to strike the lady's amendment for this bridge to nowhere, and let her get up and say why this is important or not. So I couldn't be more frustrated, and this is why we need to go back to a budget process. We've got to start all over, but this only going to happen with a Republican Senate majority, and even then, we've got to get to 60 votes on the Senate to pass something like this election integrity bill that we're talking about.
It's crazy. It's crazy that it's a partisan issue to begin with, but that's a sign of what Democrats see in illegal aliens, which is they think that these are voters one way or the other, whether it's illegally voting in elections or being granted an amnesty by Congress and becoming American citizens. That's the way they see this game. So if you could, Senator Marshall, one of the big topics this week is Springfield, Ohio. Americans everywhere are now attuned to the fact that this is a city in chaos. It's in complete chaos because it's a town of 58,000 people, and over the course of the last 2 years, 20,000 foreign nationals have been dropped on their town, and it's stressing everything about the city's resources, and we're hearing just really reports of pandemonium there. In your view as a United States Senator, how unique is this story, or is this problem more widespread?
Well, it's a good question. I think there's many towns that are feeling the stress to this. I did mission work in Haiti as a medical student. The culture there is so different than we are. I don't mean to be too PG-13 here, but they don't even use what we would call a normal restroom facility. They don't understand the importance of washing your hands and just normal sanitary issues. So just culturally, they're so different. And that would be a third of that population practically, 20,000 people dumped there. I remember there was a big car wreck in a town like this, and a hospital was trying to take care of 7 or 12 casualties. At the same time, it stresses the social systems, is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
It is just, look, America is a loving country. We want to help everybody out. But when you allow 12 million people to cross our border illegally, there's no way even the kindest of hearts can tend to the issues. This is a humanitarian crisis that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have created. It's led to more human trafficking. We've already mentioned the fentanyl poisoning deaths as well. Those 12 million people, and it may be more, where are they? So you could quickly get to 30 million people in the country right now, illegal aliens and immigrants. Even though you throw in the legal ones, you're going to get to pretty close to 10% of our population. So it's just a huge stress on all the social support systems.
Yeah, it's causing a lot of chaos, and President Trump brought it up last night in the debate, and that laughter from Kamala Harris as President Trump brought up the horrors in Springfield, Ohio. My suspicion is, and my hope, honestly, is that comes back to haunt her. That we are able to get control of this problem, and that she lose the election as a result of just being so callous in the face of that.
Yeah, I think that she has kind of a nervous tick. When she laughs is when she's uncomfortable, when she doesn't know what to say or what to do.
Yeah.
Some people have a nervous tick, and that's what her cackle is her nervous reaction to a tough situation when she really doesn't have the answer. And again, I just would go back to this. What is she going to do to secure the border? Is she committed to securing the border? Or is she committed to bringing another 10 or 20 million people across the border illegally and then influence the next census, which will influence the Electoral College?
Yeah.
These are evil people. Don't underestimate them. Elections have consequences. And boy, we've got to get somehow we have to define her for exactly who she is. That's what every Republican, every conservative journalist like yourself, every honest journalist like yourself, we need to be exposing her for who she is and what she is.
Senator Roger Marshall from Kansas. Sir, nice to have you on the program today.
You bet, Vince. Great to be with you.
Always good to chat. All right. It is 4:20 now.
WMAL, making sense of the vote because elections have consequences. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
September 11th today, the presidents, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, attending a number of events. President Biden went to Shanksville, Pennsylvania today, and while he was there, the site of where the Flight 93 plane crashed after the passengers overtook the hijackers. So President Biden's there today, and a firefighter walks up to him and offers him a Trump 2024 hat, and Biden put it on his head. So there are photos everywhere right now of Biden wearing a Trump 2024 hat today. The Kamala campaign cannot be happy about this. Hilarious. Hilarious. All right, let's see here. A lot of calls coming in. I want to go to Debbie, who's calling in from Idaho right now, line 1. Debbie, listening online. Hello, Debbie.
Hi, I'm so excited to talk to you. I listen every day from Idaho. Listen, I'm frustrated about so much negativity and harsh judgment for Trump last night because the one thing that I cared the most about was that he would tie the border to Kamala because everybody in the media and everybody and the Democrats kept trying to deny that she had anything to do with it. She wasn't the border czar and all
Right.
this stuff. But he just went right into it. No, none of the three of them tried to deny it, and they just went on the assumption that yes, she was in charge of the border. Yes, she had something to do with it. So to me, that makes from here on so much easier.
Yes, well, no, he did do an effective job of that. I would agree. And one of the things that stood out to me during that debate, just about the way it all went down, was and the way she's conducted this campaign. The reason she's running away from the border czar title is because they know it's a disaster. They don't want any blame whatsoever for the state of the border. But they of course have made it as bad as it's been, Debbie. And so you're right about that. He tagged her with that, and it sticks because it's true.
Yep, and it's not going to go away. And I'm very happy that, and he, to some extent, also was very successful in linking the economy to her as well, because she's been trying to have him be the incumbent, and she's this new version that we can choose. But no, because though he just went into it as if it was actual fact, which it is, and nobody denied it. So now it's going to stick, and we can go from there, and that's fantastic.
President Trump, here's his excellent closing statement. Take a listen to this part.
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it?
Yeah, she's vice president right now. She's not turning over a new leaf. She's the rotten leaf. Stay with us. Your call's ahead.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Hey, good afternoon to you. It is now 4:35. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up, Chris Bedford from The Blaze will be with us at 5 o'clock, and you, of course, can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL.
Allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
Yeah, this is what's happening in our country. David Muir insists, no, it's not. No, it's not. We asked one bureaucrat, and he said it's not happening. Uh-huh. Nick is calling in from Purcellville now, line 1. Nick, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. Good afternoon. That segment of the debate, that little mini debate that David Muir had with Trump.
Yeah.
Why doesn't? Because they're telling him that never happened, and it's he's off his rocker or whatever. But why don't they move their set down there, their morning set? You know how they have these morning shows, and they have like entertainment and cooking session and all that. Mm-hmm. Why don't they just have a set down there for like a week, and we could see what they are eating and how they're getting fed. Because
now you're not suggesting they should do a cooking segment in Springfield, are you?
Yes. and let's have David and taste this food, this wonderful cuisine they're eating, and and welcome these newcomers to America.
Well, sure. I mean, and you and I can both accept, and he could probably accept if he's being honest, that he's a partisan hack. That's fine. But if Springfield, Ohio is actually an amazing place, and it's just bustling and everything's going great, just go there and highlight it. Show that the Biden administration has served Springfield, Ohio well, right?
Absolutely. And another thing, Vince, you remember the thing about what was her name? The congresswoman that had shot her dog because it was wild. Nancy Mace.
Congresswoman. No. It was the Christy Nome. It was in her book.
I'm sorry.
The governor of South Dakota.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I think that was right along that time. They were the Congress was writing a letter about Dr. Fauci spending $500,000 to do these terrible experiments on beagles.
Yes.
Remember all that?
They would stick the faces of the beagles inside of boxes and then cover them with all sorts of bugs that would eat the faces of the beagles. They were trying to get diseases into these dogs and test if their vaccines or whatever were working. Yeah, they were doing very demented experiments on one of the most adorable kinds of dogs.
Absolutely. It was just sick. And so I don't know how much sympathy they have for animals, left.
No, and you're Nick. I got to say, let me emphasize a point that you started with, which is if they would merely cover what was happening in Springfield, Ohio, they would likely be horrified, or at least their audiences would be horrified by what they find. And I covered it earlier this week. There's a number of things going on there. As I mentioned, it's a town of 60,000 people, 58,000 Americans. They just had 20,000 Haitian foreign nationals dropped on their town over the course of the last year. The effect on their system there is completely overwhelmed. Suddenly, you have a growth. It's 25% of the community now is people who just arrived. And the schools and the cost of living has exploded because there's all this taxpayer cash that's being handed to the Haitians who are buying properties with it, paying their rents and buying properties. It's exploded the cost of living there, actually buying a place, living in a place in Springfield. And the other piece is the medical impact has been immense. We've seen the actual impact of the community clinics explode. They have 13 times the number of visitors now than they used to. They're not up to handle all of the people who are coming in. The car accidents have been out of control. There was we reported on a young boy named Aiden, 11 years old, who was killed by a Haitian migrant who was driving a Honda Odyssey, ran into the school bus, killed Aiden, and 20 other people on the bus were injured too. And that's a routine thing apparently in Springfield. Just the car accidents, not necessarily the deaths, but the car accidents are routine there. So it's a complete disaster. And it was all facilitated by the Biden-Harris administration who've made this happen. And today, just to add some evidence to all of this, we get some new reporting. Last night you heard David Muir insist, a local official says that they haven't had any reports of animals being eaten or anything. Well, it turns out even that's not true. The Federalist had a report this morning of 911 audio into the Springfield, Ohio police, and this is what it sounded like. Take a listen.
Clark County Communications.
Yes, ma'am. I got a question. This is a non-emergency line, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I'm sitting here. I'm riding on the trail going to my orientation for my job today, and I see a group of Haitian people. There was about 4 of them. They all had geese in their hand. They got away. I couldn't make out the first 3 of the license plate, but I got the numbers. The last number was 9898, and it was a gray Toyota Tacoma they took off on. There was about 4 of them. There was 2 men, 2 women. I couldn't tell the age because I'm in a hurry going to this orientation, so I don't be late.
Yeah, all right. So there's the phone call. He's saying, look, I'm seeing people grabbing these geese, these Haitian migrants who are in our town now, or grabbing up the geese in the community, and she's taking notes. You can hear her typing away as he tells her this. And now let me add some more to this. There's a journalist for the Daily Wire, that's Ben Shapiro's publication, and Matt Walsh, all those guys. You can hear them here each night. Spencer Lindquist today is now sharing images of residents of Springfield, Ohio, are taking photos of slaughtered pigs that are being left out in public. It's pig carcasses being left out and behind. And so I get the sense that David Muir is not going to do a deep dive on this subject. Nick?
Yeah, and also I'd like to know if those $20,000 or $25,000 deposits for homes are going to go to these people. I mean,
you mean Kamala's plan to just give away more of your money?
And somebody needs to do the math on that. I wish Trump would have did some math on that because it's going to be a lot of money just for down payments, and then a lot of these are going to fail. It's going to be like 2008 again when the real estate market.
And it's going to drive up the cost of everything. It's going to be, it's so crazy. Every time the government meddles in these markets, they lead to chaos. And that's what Kamala's proposing, more chaos. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate the call. Yes, sir. Let me see here. I've got Dennis calling in from Star Tannery on line 2. Dennis, you're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Yeah, Vince, what I want to say is I think Trump had a real good opportunity to nail David Muir when he, about the Charlottesville, in other words, Trump should say, could you please put the rest of my statement out? This will be on live TV. Yeah. And David Muir would have to admit that finally on national TV that Trump did not say just that they were all good on both sides, that he was against white supremacists and Nazis.
Yes.
And, and then he could tell David Muir, also put this on your national TV show. Would do me a favor. Could you do that? And it really probably get David Muir to stumble a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, it was Kamala Harris who just brought up a cascade of hoaxes all at once at the same time. And of course, that was the script that she was given. And she was even drilled for a week. You've got to have this script. You got to say all these things. The idea being, if we kick enough dirt up into the air, Trump's not going to be able to tell people how they're all completely lies. But here's what it sounded like when Kamala did that.
Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
So that was the Charlottesville hoax, the Charlottesville lie, and this is, of course, what Trump said back at the time.
And you had some very bad people in that group, but you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. And I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally.
That was President Trump back at the time. The quote that they rely on to attack him is right before the absolutely perfect statement that he made on the subject, but they don't share that. And that hoax continues. By the way, that particular piece of audio that I just played is one of the most jaw-dropping things that people who only lightly follow the news ever listen to. If you ever hear...
it would have been just fine if he would have put David Muir on the spot, but that's just how I feel, because they're so corrupt and deceitful.
And you're yelling at your screen going, okay, make them tell the truth, because you know what the truth is, and it's frustrating to see lies being spread like that. Thank you. I appreciate the call.
All right, thanks, Vince.
So that's totally right. And again, that audio, it's so funny. Every time I play that, I think about how many times have you seen former lefties who are like, wait a second, I was lied to about, there's quite a few of them. I was lied to about this. I thought that Trump said that Nazis were good people. I didn't know that he said that he condemned them totally. The media lied to me about this, and those lies continue. So when Kamala says that last night, does David Muir dive in and say, hey, wait a second, actually, Trump condemned neo-Nazis? No, he doesn't. He doesn't at all. He lets it stand. He lets the lie stand. Here's more from Kamala Harris's claims last night.
Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page.
I love how she pretends she's the change agent. She's responsible for all of the division and out of control qualities of our country right now. She's like, it's time to go forward, not backward.
And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking.
So again, another hoax, a complete scam. ABC doesn't intercept it. They don't stop her. They don't correct her. That they only reserve that treatment in a very dishonest way for Donald Trump. Donald Trump's actual remarks back in Michigan were that should he lose the election, should Biden and Harris prevail again, it will be an economic bloodbath for the auto industry. Here's what that sounded like back then.
We're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars if I get elected. Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country.
Yeah. So Trump is talking about the auto industry, and all of the fact checkers at the time begrudgingly burped out stories that were like, well, in full context, he was talking about the auto industry. So here I am once again having to do the work that a multi-billion-dollar company refuses to do. ABC. Disney, let's remember, this is a Disney operation that did all of this. They refused to tell the truth to their audience. They lied. They rigged what was supposed to be a presidential debate and left us with that flaming pile of garbage. And, I get it. I've got calls, a lot of calls coming in. People wish that, Trump was able to dunk on these guys. But I'm telling you, just look at what he was up against. It's Trump versus Kamala and versus Lindsey Davis and versus David Muir and versus every single panel on cable news and versus the warm-up shows, the aftermath shows, the clip shows, Morning Joe. It's Trump versus the world here. So Trump isn't merely keeping his head above water last night. Trump was scoring body blows. He did that throughout the evening. Do you want him to be at his best all the time? Absolutely. Absolutely. Was he at his best throughout last night? No, he wasn't. But the reality here is he is once again standing in between the demons and the rest of us. He was on that debate stage last night fighting. And there's and especially it's always like this with the people you love, you want to see them succeed at their max. My kid's a swimmer. She's 10. She's a swimmer. And when she doesn't get her personal best in a swim, as kids get older, it's like usually they beat their personal records the older and stronger they get. But sometimes she doesn't beat her personal best. And you sit back and you go, shoot, I know she could have done a little better. I know she could have gone a little harder. I know she could have done that. And that's small ball. That's my kid. She's swimming in a swim lane, trying to swim faster. But this is the way you contemplate the people that you love and appreciate. You say, I just want them at their best. I want them at their best. I know they have that in them. I know I've seen Trump do it. And that's a good instinct to have. But as you have that thought, don't lose sight of the fact that it's him against the world. And he did that again last night. All right. Right now it's 4:51. More of your calls.
WMAL, making sense of the markets because generational wealth doesn't build itself. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
Happy he had a bad night, but I'm kind of glad he had a bad night because people need to wake up. We saw the real Kamala last night. She's not near as stupid as she plays. This was all planned. She is a conniving, lying communist dictator. If she gets in the White House, she is going to institute the end of personal property. I'm telling you, she has her values, and her values is a 90% tax against successful American companies. That 90% tax will be paid by the American people. Can you pay your bills on 9 times less the money you're making right now?
Not a chance.
Do not vote for Kamala Harris. She is a communist, and she will take your freedom from you.
Phil, President Trump, I think, had this moment specifically for you last night. Take a listen.
She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well.
Yeah, so that was for you, Phil.